Hello, kia ora, good afternoon, and welcome to the Manaaki podcast this afternoon. We've got a guest from the tourism sector, and he's going to give us some insight into what's shaping his thinking right now, how he's approaching the future amidst, well, what is likely to be a border closed for some time, I think. He's the CEO of Jucy, Tim Alpe. He's with us now. I'll bring him up and shot. There he is. Hi, Tim. How are you doing?
Good, thanks, Rachel. How are you?
I'm really well. Where are you bedded in for the lockdown?
I'm bedded in at home. I'm in Auckland here, so yeah, couldn't go in the office. So I'm sort of lucky enough to have a downstairs area, which is normally taken up by my 14-year-old's books. She's an avid reader. They're not mine, so I can't claim can't claim to be that smart. But I've bedded down at home for the last 3 weeks now. So yeah.
Awesome. Okay, tell me a little bit about your journey, I guess, and your mindset through the lockdown through to now where we are today.
Yeah, look, it's been the craziest last month really for us. When I want to say we saw this coming, we kind of sort of started to impact tourism sort of back in January this year. We could see, the Chinese market. I went up to Europe in, I think, start of February, middle February, and went and saw a lot of our trade partners up there, and you could just get the sense that, hang on, this thing's bigger than what we were all kind of anticipating, and there was quite a lot of concern around. And then, but when it hit, it kind of just hit us like a tidal wave. And yeah, so I think I've gone through the grieving process a little bit. The shock, the anger, the frustration, and then we're just going to get on with this thing and get through it.
Few challenges, though, to say the least, along the way. What have been some of the toughest challenges for you?
Yeah, the hardest thing for me is, we're a family business. We're a business that up until this hit was employing around about 430 people across all our different businesses. And actually having to understand when you go from, the revenue we had just down to zero, the first thing you've got to do is survive, and you've got to get your business as lean as possible just to get through, because no one knows how long this is going to last for, Rachel. So we're just sitting there going, shit, what's going to happen? So the hardest thing for us was really dealing with from a people perspective, and these are people who've been with us for a long, long time, and they're part of our family. And like any business, your people are everything to us, and having to make some very, very tough decisions, tough conversations was heartbreaking at times.
And something I imagine you had to do quite suddenly. You wouldn't have imagined you'd be having some of these conversations, in March, traditionally a really busy month for you with some of your staff.
Yeah, you're right. A lot of our staff come the end of the high season, so end of April, sort of start of May, we get natural churn. But yeah, it's the conversations that you have to make straight away to say, we need to make big changes. We were really lucky that we were able to utilise the government subsidy and at least give ourselves the ability to have our staff go onto the subsidy, which gave us a choice that when this came out, when it comes back in 3 or 4 months' time, that we're in a position to actually have people there whatever way it comes back. So that was been really helpful for us. But yeah. Very, very hard.
Can you give us an idea of the size of your fleet these days, and what a year typically looks like, if you can, for Jucy?
Yeah, we're quite a diverse company now. So we've obviously got our core camper van car rental business, which we run around about 4,000 vehicles across New Zealand, Australia, and a small fleet up in the US. But we also have accommodation. We have pod hotels, so we have hotels in Auckland, Christchurch, and Queenstown. And we have a cruise company in the Milford Sound. So we have 2 boats that do day trips around the Milford Sound. And then we operate in New Zealand, Australia, and up in the US. So quite a diverse offering now. About 430 staff before all this all happened, and we do manufacturing. So quite a diverse business to what we start off as.
Yeah, quite diverse, but reliant on tourism.
Yeah, it's diverse in terms of product offering, not so much diverse in terms of clientele. Yeah, very, very, very tourist focused, and mainly internationally tourist focused. So yeah, it's this is as I said, it's been the hardest month of my life.
So give me an idea of who makes up your customer base, largely obviously international, and where they're largely from and how they typically have booked with you.
Yeah, so historically, a big part of our market is Europe. So we get a lot out of the German-speaking markets, the UK markets, the Dutch markets, ones who traditionally like to road trip, and they come down to Australia and New Zealand and to the US, and they camper van. They travel around the country, and it's great. And they've always done this, and that's kind of our biggest part of our market. Our accommodation slightly different. We get a bit of a mixture of locals, domestic and international, and our cruises are a section of everyone, but mainly international. So, when the borders closed, it kind of stopped everything. It was about as dramatic as that. And and it made us sort of sit there going, shit, what's going to happen, and how do we, and the biggest thing, I think the hardest thing for us as a business, and for all tourism businesses who are doing it as tough, if not tougher than us, is the what the future looks like. We just don't know. It's the unknown, which is the hardest thing.
Yeah, and that's what I was going to say to you. You rely on the physical presence, of people being here in New Zealand, and largely from, as you say, the Germans, the Dutch, the Europeans, and that's what makes your business survive and thrive. So how do you plan? What's going on in your mind now? How do you plan and strategize for the future when you're not in control of that future?
Yeah, it's a horrific position to be in when you can't control what necessarily is going to happen, but you can control how you deal with it. And I think for us, it was, we had to, straight away, we had to go into a sort of hibernation mothball scenario, because we just, everything stopped. So we did that. Our hotels are still operating at a very small level, but our cruise business and our camper van rental, car rental business, we just hibernated. As soon as lockdown came in, we hibernated that. That was kind of the first, survive. And then it's about what does it look like? And, it's pretty clear domestic tourism is going to be the focus for the next 3 to 6 months. You call it 3 to 6 months. It's going to be very domestic focused. Okay, how do we work that? How do we work on that? What happens if, how do we encourage New Zealanders? How do we work with other tourism operators to do that? And then it's about Trans-Tasman. How does that happen? When that opens up, how do we cater towards that? And then it's saying, okay, when international comes back, what does our business look like? Because it'll be different to what it was BC, before COVID. It'll be very different.
I was going to talk to you about that, actually, and you've kind of jumped the gun on me on that question a little bit. Do you think that once it's quite okay, that once COVID-19 is under control globally, whenever that may be, and when borders open again, do you think your business model will, in essence, be able to do, say in 2 years' time, something of a lift and shift, like what was working, in a month ago? Does that business model lift and shift into a 2 years' time, how you'll operate as well? Or do you think that the impact of this global health pandemic might change the way the world travels forever?
I think it'll definitely change the way it will change. It may not change it forever, but, and you say 2 years, I'm really hoping, like anything, we're talking 12 to 18 months until the big international business comes back in terms of Europe opens up again. I think challenges will get our stuff sorted out here quite a lot quicker than most. And so, we'll be ready to go. We'll be there with our arms open, and no one will be jumping into them. So we've got to really focus on the domestic market. But in terms of our business, we will. I'm taking a really positive view on this, that we will come out of this stronger, better, more resilient. We'll probably be more focused on not trying to be all things to everyone, and say, what do we do really, really well as a business? And okay, we do that really well. Let's focus on that. Let's be really, really clear on that. We're inevitably going to be a leaner business. We're probably not going to carry some of the historical fat. Maybe some locations weren't working as well as they should have. Maybe we went too big, too hard on certain areas. Let's get it back and be really, really defined about what we offer. So we'll change.
When you talked about that you're sort of going into a bit of a hibernation state, what does that look like? And is it possible to market, presumably at a different price point, given that New Zealand's in a recession and we're not on international budgets? Is it possible to remarket a chunk of your business at a domestic audience?
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah, I think it's it is a different market. It is a different mindset to targeting the international traveller, and we probably didn't get a lot of the the domestic traveller, primarily because our business all happens around summer, mainly around summer, and the international's booked well in advance. So by the time, if a New Zealander wanted to travel in the middle of December, January, February, everything was taken, right? So you focus on the European market, so that changes. We've got to focus on the domestic market. There's no question that yields will not be the same. They just won't. And for all the reasons that you said, there's We are going to be hitting a difficult time from an economy perspective. If unemployment gets high, what does that mean in terms of people's ability to travel? But you've also got to adapt. I think, we accept that if we're able to get our model a lot leaner, if we're able to be a lot more strategic around what assets we operate, then we can afford to actually have a lower yield, targeting that domestic customer. So I've got to stay buoyant about it.
You're a big player in the tourism sector, but as with New Zealand in general, we're a nation of small businesses, and that's the same for tourism. I think about some of the the motels supporting like the Waitomo Caves, or you think about some of the smaller boutique places who capitalise on the tourism market all around the country. On the west coast of the South Island. Have you got any advice, Tim, for some of those small operators who are going to be really hard hit, and what they need to be thinking about to ride this out or potentially pivot to survive?
Yeah, I mean, look, we speak to a lot of people in the industry, and I know that the good example down in Waitomo, the motels around there, all up and down the little cafes, the restaurants that all the vineyard tours or the bike tours or whatever. There's so many small business, and to be honest with you, tourism in New Zealand is made up of thousands of mar and par operators who do an incredible job and provide an amazing experience. And that's the feedback that our customers get. They might hire a vehicle and drive around the country, but it's the great meal they had in Glenorchy, or it's the pie in Ashburton or wherever they remember. And so we've got to be really careful that those businesses are there when we come out of this, because my greatest fear is that if they're not, the actual experience that our tourists will have when they arrive into New Zealand will not be anywhere near what it needs to be, and that impacts on New Zealand Inc. So in terms of those businesses, I think you've got to think outside the square a little bit. I was talking to a amazing property on the Kaikoura coast yesterday, and they've got campground and they've got operating. We're talking about maybe we put vehicles there, they're permanent vehicles, and we get people who are driving their own cars to stay in them, and just thinking outside the square and work with other tourism operators, because I think that's where this has got to be about mates helping mates. It's got to be about how do we rethink our business model, but I think other people have to as well.
Yeah, partnership is key, right? I feel like what I'm getting from you now is that is there an opportunity in this crisis? And yes, there is. But for the tourism sector, you might have to have a pretty deep dive to think about where that opportunity lies.
Yeah, I think you're absolutely right. I mean, look, I'm hoping there is talk around government may look at, like they're looking at media at the moment. They're looking at different industries. The tourism industry has been hit on all different angles. I don't think there won't be one tourism operator anywhere in this country that's having a good time of it at the moment. So, look, I think opportunities will come out of this. I think you've got to, we've hibernated, cut those costs down, get as lean as possibly can, utilize what options are available, try to ride it out. But then, if it's a focus on domestic, then how does that work? What do we have to do to make ourselves domestically attractive? But I think there's some light. Tourism New Zealand spend millions and millions of dollars overseas each year. That won't happen. Yeah. And that'll be pumped into New Zealand, and it's same for Australia. So you know what? And New Zealanders, I know economy is going to be tight, and unemployment's going to be high, but New Zealanders do like to get out, and they've been stuck at home for 4 weeks, right? And people will want to do things, and if they can find ways of finding affordable travel, and if we can help by facilitating that, by coordinating, it might work.
How does tourism plan a recovery, do you think? And perhaps more importantly, who do you think will potentially lead or contribute to leading the recovery? Who do you want to see at that top table, to coin a better phrase, helping to drive the tourism recovery in this country?
Yeah, I think the one that comes first to mind is Tourism New Zealand. I think they're a great agency. They've done an incredible job marketing ourselves offshore, and we've all seen the results, right? And to the point where a lot of New Zealanders are going, there's too many tourists here, which is ironic now. But they've done an amazing job. So look, they're going to pivot. They're going to focus. Stephen, who's the CEO there, he's going to focus on domestic. It's going to be a big mandate from the government to say, we need to get New Zealanders travelling. Once this all comes through, we need to stimulate the economy. So I think those guys are critical. I think Tourism Industry Association, Chris Roberts and the guys there are doing an amazing job as a voice for the industry. So they're one that I think will be heavily involved. And then I think it really comes down to operators, from the smallest to the largest, kind of trying to work together to come up with ideas. Look at ways in which we can do a road trip and do a 7-day road trip that includes 6 different stops, or a long weekend that includes accommodation in Blenheim or whatever. So I think if we can do that collectively, it may just start to stimulate things.
Who are you bouncing your ideas off, or is it a little bit of a challenge in the lockdown? But who do you go to for advice or to just swirl things around in your mind?
Yeah, we're fortunate that actually what's been really interesting is we're a business that we've got a senior team, a general leadership team, and they've all gone through the ringer as a result of this. They've all taken pay cuts. Some of them won't be with us long term. It's a really it's been a really tough. But what I've really found interesting is everyone has kind of stood up, and maybe in the past we were too reliant on 1 or 2 people to come up with all the ideas, and it was probably our fault. We probably didn't empower them enough to come up. But now when you say to them, okay, we're going to have to focus on domestic, come up with every idea. What doesn't matter, whatever it is. And next minute, it's incredible. You get bombarded with, we should do this. We should contact this person. If we got involved in this might work. And it's been amazing. So I'm actually looking to our team. And then I'm also looking to other people in the industry. We're talking to competitors. We compete, but, I kind of think right now competition is somewhat out the window, and it's all about a collective approach to get this industry back. And it sounds a bit romantic, really, doesn't it? But it is kind of true. We've all got a vested interest for this thing to work, and we've got to get it back working.
Kiwis quite often aren't that comfortable talking about this, but has it placed greater demands on your leadership style? And have you had some, learnings from a lockdown in a country that's been forced to just completely shut its borders down?
Yeah, it has. My leadership. Yeah, it definitely has. I think personally, as I said to you before, this has been a really, really tough time for a number of reasons. Especially when you're working on, how do you get through, what happens, what it's going to look like. So I think the biggest key for us has been, we took one of our leaders in our business said from the start, communication is the key. And it sounds, everyone says, communication is the key, but it actually
no argument here, Tim.
With of course, but with everyone, right? Just not with our staff, but with our guys cleaning the camper vans off, cleaning the hotel rooms, or our accountants. It's communication, good, bad, or ugly. And be honest about that communication, and so with suppliers and with partners and everything else. And I think if you are that way, people get this. They go, this is shit. And I've been bombarded by lots of people who are friends and everyone else who they must, I don't know, I feel like I must have some sort of disease or something. Probably wrong wording at the moment, because everyone contacts me and goes, I'm so sorry to hear what's going on. I'm so sorry. And I'm like, oh, yeah. But it's amazing because people actually, they know and they care. And our staff, we've had to make people redundant, and we've had to do horrible, it's affected people. It's tragic, but they come back and they go, well, how are you holding up? How are you going? Yeah, this must be tough cool. for you and Dan. It's touching, Rachel. It's next level. It's why we do it.
Absolutely. How do you look after your brand, to go from that sort of, which is touchy-feely kind of space we're in, but, brands quite often can completely tie themselves up in knots at times like this. Their messaging is wrong, or they don't get the right balance between grit and compassion right, and they're not communicating properly. What's been your approach to sort of looking after Jucy, I guess? And you've mentioned how you've communicated internally. I'm interested to know whether you're engaging externally at any point so far, and whether you will look to do that with your email database, for example, and on social.
Yeah, it's a good question. We originally, when this all happened, it was like, okay, we've got to survive. This is horrific for everyone, not just us, but everyone in our industry. In fact, everyone in New Zealand, it's in the world, it's horrific. So our first thing was, okay, well, let's just keep our external communication really light, in the sense of talk to our customers. We had people on the road, we had people cancelling. So all those sort of things, we had to take a really long, strong role in and actually communicate really, really with these guys. I think it then became a question of, we don't want to go out right now and be going, book us. As soon as you come out of lockdown, take a road trip, because people are losing jobs, and you've got to be really sensitive to this, and people are going through a tough time and sickness. So we started to have a little bit of fun recently with it, in the sense that we've just launched a campaign where we over Easter you can't go out camping and out traveling. So we set up your own home campground, take some photographs, post it on our social pages, and we'll give you a road trip at the end if you win. And we got My Food Bag, we got fuel companies on board, we got Neat Meat, we got all these partners and got on board, and we pulled up this thing, and we just done stuff which is kind of a bit of fun, and understanding that people are going through a tough time, but laughter is the best medicine at times. So we've done that internally, and we've started to partner with a few companies like Eat My Lunch around delivering products. So trying to say some good stuff in what is a really, really tough environment, but also be really conscious that people are doing it really tough, and you've got to be sensitive to it. Hard one.
Do you think we'll get a surge in sort of patriotism? I mean, I was listening today to the Prime Minister's messaging around what level 3 might look like, and one of the statements she said that sort of lodged in my mind. She said, we're doing okay, we're doing great, and the government's trying to put this in place, but we need a team of 5 million behind us to make it work. And I do sense myself that there's a little bit more of a village feeling about New Zealand now. We're supporting local, and I think that will probably increase particularly as we go to level 3 and hopefully level 2 and level 1. Do you see perhaps something happening in that space where New Zealanders are trying to support good New Zealand brands and strong New Zealand products through this time?
Yeah, look, I do. I mean, I think we've always, as New Zealanders, I've always said the one beautiful thing about living down here and working around the world is that New Zealanders really want to support other New Zealanders. I truly believe that, and no one's actually off limit here. I mean, if I really wanted to get in touch with someone, you could end up getting in touch with them. It doesn't, you can do that. And so I think we always want to help. I agree with you, though, that I think there's this sense of patriotism, or the sense of just, we're down the bottom of the world. How do we make sure that we get through this collectively? And I think we're pretty good at it, but I hope it even gets better. I hope we support New Zealand businesses, and we are passionate about New Zealand business. And we know that, I may buy this product because I know this is going to help the local manufacturer of cheese or whatever, right? As opposed to the imported product. So look, I think it'll happen, and I'm kind of excited about it.
I've got some comments coming in saying great attitude, and Kim says really enjoying listening to you, Tim. So thanks very much for being with us. I just wanted to ask you one other question, which is put you on the spot a little bit here. As we move through these different levels, and as we look to stimulate the economy, what does tourism need, do you think, as we come out of these different levels, and our borders will be closed, it seems, for a while, but what does tourism need as a sector to survive this and go on to grow through it?
Oh, look, I think it needs a number of things. I think it needs collaboration. It needs a strong voice. I think it needs, and that's an industry voice. A lot of companies need help. They will need help. I mean, we are a big company in a reasonably sized company in the tourism game in New Zealand, and we need help like everyone else does to be able to come out of this and continue to prosper and continue to give an incredible experience. So I think it doesn't matter what size you are. I think there's going to be a need for collaboration. I think the government support in the terms of just investing in promoting tourism domestically in New Zealand. And I think, to be honest with you, I think we need confidence. Now, I might be standing here and saying, it's trying to be as upbeat as possible, because I don't actually know any other way to do it, Rachel. I mean, I think if, it's not about, I'm realistic. I'm totally realistic of the position that tourism operators are in. I'm totally realistic of our position. But I've got to think that we will come back. We are an incredible country, and it's about time that New Zealanders actually got out there and saw our own country. And you can't do anything about it. You can't go to the Gold Coast.
Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah.
And also, do you think post this, you look at how the rest of the world is handling this. You look at some of the horrors. America, just tragic what's going on there. And when you look through Europe as well, and you look through some of the other nations, in Asia. You're not 100% sure whether all the information you're getting is right. But what we do know is that New Zealand is certainly one of the leaders of the pack here, and that pure NZ image, which is one of our marketing pushes overseas, may stand us in good stead potentially on the other side of this. I mean, the fact that we've got the big moat around us and we're safe, and we, as the government says, will eliminate this virus. We could be surely one of the top tourist destinations. People may want to come here because of how well we've managed it, and because we are, ultimately virus free.
Yeah, look, I think you're absolutely right. I think we've managed it. We've been very decisive. I mean, there's been strong leadership from a PM perspective. Look, whether you agree with a total lockdown or whether you think other countries are doing it differently and less of an impact on the economy, it doesn't actually really matter. I think ultimately what we're doing is we've got a strategy in play, and I think you've got to think about, when we do come out and when the borders open up, there's already a sense that New Zealand is this beautiful safe haven that people want to visit. That can only get stronger with the sense that we've been able to get through this and come out the other side and be stronger for it. So look, you got to think that in the long term, New Zealand tourism is such an important part of this industry, part of this economy. There is a real desire, and we're actually bloody good at it as an industry from everywhere. So I think we want to make sure those companies are there, and we're actually able to offer an incredible service once this all gets back on track.
Brilliant. All right, Tim, I really appreciate you talking to us. Thank you so much.
No problems.
Great insight. We really appreciate it. Thanks so much.
Thanks, Rachel.
We will be back tomorrow at 2:30 when we're speaking with Lisa King from Eat My Lunch and the amazing pivot that she's done. I think Jucy had a bit of a hand to play helping her with some of the cars to do her pivot. But thanks so much. Thanks, everyone. More information at our forum, manaaki.io. Thanks so much. Have a great afternoon.
Bye.